Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here this beautiful Monday morning with David, and we are talking about talking. Today's topic is public speaking, a fear worse than death. And I find it ironic that David and I are publicly speaking about public speaking, but obviously we know it is... I think in all the polls that have ever been done, people are more afraid of public speaking than they are of dying. And to me, that's a very interesting topic, and we'll understand how this week conspires to support us and empower us to take whatever level we have of communicating with the world to the next level. Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual weather forecast where David, myself, and often our guests share the most powerful and practical wisdom and tools to support you in the coming 7 days, whatever opportunities and gifts might be coming through. We do that by gleaning through the wisdom of Kabbalah and picking out the lessons, the wisdom, the tools that will help our listeners not only navigate the coming 7 days, but our entire lives. And I can tell you from my personal experience, I don't know if I ever shared it on the podcast before, growing up, speaking was my greatest challenge. Not that I couldn't speak, but that I had a tremendous blockage in talking to people. I couldn't order food at a restaurant. If we went out to dinner, my family, I would tell my parents what I wanted, or if I didn't like it, I would whisper to them, and they would have to communicate to whoever was serving. I couldn't, if I didn't feel comfortable with the people that I was next to, if I didn't know them, I had a lot of difficulty speaking. And we're not talking about public speaking. We're talking about one-on-one communication. It was actually through my experience at the Kabbalah Centre that I gradually learned to work through that. When I decided that I wanted to volunteer at the Kabbalah, do you know the story?
Maybe.
I wanted to volunteer at the Kabbalah Centre, so I met with the volunteer coordinator, and she said, tell me what you want to do, and we'll help find the right role for you. I said, I type like 90 words a minute. I'm good at editing and writing and alphabetizing. Put me in the back office. I'll create magic. And the first thing she had me do was answer phones. So great, answering phones. There's a buffer there. You don't have to see the other person. To her credit, I see the genius in that. The next thing that I had to do, or that I got to do, was class registration. So as people would enter classes, I would have to say, hi, how are you? What's your name? And that opened up a pretty interesting door for me, at least, to learn that I have a gift with human beings. And then another interesting piece of that story, and then I'll stop talking, is I had my first astrology reading. And I think I was 17 at the time. And the astrologer told me, I see a huge, you're going to find your career in January.
January.
Okay, I think I'm in 11th grade.
It's very horoscopish.
Right? She says, I see that your life's career begins this January. And I was like, I'm in high school. I don't need to work. But, I was very, what do you mean? And sure enough, I only realized it a number of years later that's when I started to teach kids at the Kabbalah Centre.
That's right.
I was asked to be a part of it. Was like a Sunday school kind of program where we taught Kabbalah 1 principles to, I was teaching 8 to 10-year-olds at the time.
Nice.
And now I understand that all of those different opportunities came to gradually wean me off of being shy and silent and move me into a place where the main tool for communication that I use is my voice. Teaching classes, David and I had a number of years ago where we were traveling a few times every month to speak in front of hundreds of people in different venues. Best Kept Secret lecture circuit. Right. Did that for a couple of years, and that was really like a next level.
That was like 3 to 4 seminars a week in every city.
We would travel and do multiple cities in each trip. We would do Chicago, Cleveland, and Seattle and Vancouver.
The best turnout we always had was in the Bible Belt. I remember that.
It was a really powerful, and
Alabama. People love this stuff
for sure. But this is the thing. Is that for me, and I use it in classes when I talk about transformational sharing and the way that our gifts are usually behind our garbage, right? That in certain situations, you would think I was mute because I just could not express myself. I couldn't deliver a message. I couldn't speak from my heart. And it was pretty amazing looking back to see how the universe set me up to break that. And if sometimes I have this thought of, if I stayed in that place, if I didn't have the time volunteering at the Kabbalah Centre in that period, or if there were different opportunities I had to break that shell. What would I be doing if I didn't? Where would I be? And I use that story often, even in one-on-one sessions with people, to help them understand whatever you think you cannot do, often that's the thing you must do.
Beautiful.
So
beautiful. I was thinking about how the energy of this week also applies in a way for public speaking. And I think maybe by sharing this, I think we can really get excited about fine-tuning our ability to be channels in this world. Because at the end of the day...
That's what it's about.
That's what it's about.
It doesn't matter how many people you're talking in front of.
That's correct. Because good public speaking, there's definitely technique to it. And I know that there was a time that Karen Berg, our teacher, while I appreciated most how she taught me to best be a channel for people, which means that you're able to tap into something that's deeper on a soul level for them, that's very intuitive.
It's not scripted and not on a note card, and it's not
coming from the logic, it's not coming from the brain, it's not coming from my personal experience, which is very limited. It's coming from a deeper place. And you really want to be a channel for each person, because you'll say things that are totally pop out of left field, but it's what the person needed to hear. But I remember even Karen emphasized the importance to me to also get a coach and actually work on the practical stuff as well, which I encourage people to do, because it's a very spiritual process. I remember hiring somebody who was very meticulous in filming me over and over again, forcing me to watch it over and over again, forcing me to watch it on mute. I had to watch my lectures on mute. And he's like, look, you're bouncing around like a bunny rabbit. Your body language is not communicating effectively. So how are you going to reach the souls of people? And for all of us, we are speaking and communicating all day long. It's probably what we're doing most, besides maybe sleeping. No, probably communicating even more than we're sleeping, truthfully. And whether that's business, your kids, your love life, you want to be able to learn how to speak, how to be a channel. So there are the practical steps to public speaking. This is not the topic of tonight for us, but I encourage people to learn them.
You know why I'm smiling is because in an effort to help me, my parents sent me to acting school.
Oh, that's great.
So that I refused to speak to people, but I had all the technique and the skills and the presentation ability that was just dormant until I was able to break through that speaking.
How valuable that is.
It was tremendously. And I even as the years go by, I realize even more and more how valuable that was. But we don't always see, we say hindsight is 20/20. It's even more than that. You don't know why this situation, why this blockage or barrier is in front of you. And again, we're not talking about filling a stadium. You may have the opportunity to talk to your family or to your team at work or to your neighbors about something that's important, and you want to be a channel, right? Yeah. The fears, this is what I know at least, the fears really come from, how are they going to hear me? What am I going to sound like? They're judging me. What are they judging me for? And all of those thoughts are simply clogging up the pipe that allows you to be the channel. Like beautiful. It's not up to you how, right? What do they say? How other people feel about you is their problem, not yours, right? But we get so caught up in, how do I sound? How do I look? How am I received? What are people going to say or think about me? That that's literally the sludge that prevents us from being able to take a divine message, not my fears, not my worries, not my intellect, but to really carry a message that's going to reach the people in the way that they need.
Maybe we can both share practical tools that we've been taught and we've learned in how to be better channels for people, and our audience can decide how to extract from that what they may, because the energy of this week is really helping us realize that we don't want to speak from the brain. We don't want to speak from intellect. You don't want to speak from your personal experience. Otherwise you're limited. You're very limited. So, for example, number one thing I was always taught is try to listen to what's unspoken more than what is spoken. So someone will be talking to me, and I need people to talk. So the way I learn about the person on a soul level is I'll just ask questions. And they can be very mundane and random questions. I'll be like, well, how old are you? Do you have siblings? Where did you live? What's the most painful thing that happened to you? And I'm listening less to what they're actually saying. But when people speak, it says that when a person opens their mouth, they will always reveal the truth about the darkness in their soul. Whether they're not saying it or not is irrelevant, but the darkness piggybacks on the words. That's why the sages used to say you should always keep your mouth shut, because you will eventually reveal who you are and your negativity inside through your talking. So I need to get a person to start talking, and obviously not in a negative way, but I want to understand them in a positive way to help them. So as they're talking, and it's something we should all practice, try to listen, try to visualize like the soul of the person, and the soul is saying something. And oftentimes this will come to you as intuition or images in your brain or as a sound. Everyone, it's going to be a little different. And so a person will be talking maybe about their brother or their career or whatever, but you start to feel and see and understand something much deeper. And then I'll start to ask questions about this other area. I'm not going to do the psychic thing that says, well, what I see here is you had a brother who's abused you your whole life. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, do you have a brother? What happened in your teenagers? Asking a lot of questions to be able to pull information and energy out of people helps you understand what is the pain behind the pain. Another thing is when people are upset and people are angry, for example, we learn this in relationships, and it's such a powerful topic. When a man or a woman is upset with you in your relationship and they're saying things that may or may not even be true, but they're volatile and they're emotional and they're afraid, what they're saying is not actually what's bothering them. What they're saying is that they don't feel safe. They don't feel...
What does this have to do with public speaking?
Well, what does that have to do with public speaking in terms of... Because if you want to be a channel for someone, you have to ignore, actually, the words that are coming out of their mouth. You have to go deeper than what's being said. And as long as you always know that, you'll find it, because you can't find something you're not looking for. So every time someone's talking, I'm looking for, and I'm asking the creator the question, what is the pain behind this pain? What is the seed level of what's bothering the person? If someone in business comes to, if an employee or a colleague comes to you with a business problem, hey boss, we're having a problem here. You're not going to try to solve the problem. The boss's job is not to solve the problem. The boss's job is to ultimately find what caused the problem to begin with. We're not dealing with the symptom. We want to deal with the cause. And if you want to be with a channel for someone, you need to desire to know the cause of their pain, the cause of their problem. If your child is acting out, if you're a child like, these bewitching hours between like 5 and 7 when the kids just go nuts, why are they so like, what's going on some of these nights where it's like, it's very hard to control your kids? Now, you could try to discipline them and try to tell them they shouldn't be that way and that's not the right way to be. But you realize the pain is that all day long, maybe they're at school and they're so polished and they have to be so structured. And now they need an outlet for an hour to just express themselves. And we perceive it as chaos. But when you ask the question, then the thought comes, you know what? Maybe they're expressing themselves. Maybe this is a form of healing for them, not a form of being, not something that requires punishment. So then you realize their pain, and then you talk to them and say, you know what? You guys probably just need to blow off some steam. Why don't you take another 5-10 minutes to do that, and then we need to do X, Y, Z. But my point is, the secret of empathy, the secret of problem solving, the secret of making sure problems don't come back again is to ignore the symptom, but go deeper and search for the pain behind the pain.
It's funny, I give that advice in the other direction to people. When they have an important thing they want to talk about, they need to confront someone, they want to share how they've been feeling. And this also works for, by the way, if you need to give a speech or you need to give a class, you write down everything you want to say and you walk away from it. You come back to it and you remove anything that's not real, relevant, connected, anything that's charged with old issues, previous emotions, past relationships, and you end up being stuck with like 7 words total that are actually real and relevant.
Beautiful.
I use that same editing process for when I need to speak. And this is actually, there's an anecdote behind it as well. I study, I prepare, I do my best to be able to recall what I want to say without looking at the paper. And then when I come to speak, the paper goes away. Because if I'm focused on, did I say everything I wanted to say, I block that ability to channel, right? I'm looking at the words and the facts and the ideas instead of being sensitive to what does the audience need right now? And that to me is a question you can ask if you're in front of one person, 2 people, 5 people, 10 people. Yeah, I have something that I want to give over. I have a message to deliver. What does the other party need to hear? And so that writing process is, what do I need to deliver? But in the moment, being present and being able to say, okay, this was my plan. Do I need to pivot from this? What's really going on in the moment? And it happened to me in the beginning. I learned this lesson in a painful way. Also, not only is it a best practice, but the universe decided to give me the lesson firsthand. Many years ago, I was asked to lead a meditation on. We were having a new moon event. It was a Friday night, lots of people, full house, and I wrote my script. And I love scripts because you read the script and then you put away the script, right? So it's not just points and ideas, it's literally a flow, and then you get rid of the flow. Anyway, I wanted to stick to the flow that night. And there was a person who gave the lecture was over, everybody's clapping, and then we're ready for the meditation, and they turn out the lights. And I have my script in front of me that I can't, I'm like good. Holding it up to a candle to see if I can see the words through the paper. Obviously, I understood that, especially when it comes to meditation, to script it, it's not only shortchanging you, it's shortchanging the meditators, right? You've got to be able to, you in leading a meditation, you are in a state of meditation. And the universe gave me that lesson very firsthand in a very humbling way. But to me, it really is about creating a structure and then being able to flow.
I love that. I remember in the beginning years of preparing lectures, I was so nervous all the time. I would spend hours and hours and hours and hours on PowerPoint. And I think there's a need for that in the beginning because you got to kind of research and learn. But it's what you said. If you carry that PowerPoint into a seminar, it just becomes too stuffy. And ultimately, what people are listening to is not your content; it's your certainty. People listen to energy. They don't listen to the words.
What they're left with at the end. Do they remember what you said? No, but they remember how they felt.
That's right. I one of the most valuable lessons I've learned from being in the room with very, powerful people, amazing people. Anyone who's really good at what they do, I want to be in a room with them. I want to understand why they do it, or how they do it. And at the end of the day, what I realized is, it's the energy they're putting through their words. It's not the words themselves. I don't know if I shared this in the podcast. I might have shared this in a class, but somebody shared with me an encounter they had with Jeff Bezos. And Jeff Bezos gave them advice about something. And I said, well, oh my God, what was the advice? So he said, well, Jeff Bezos said this to me. And what Jeff Bezos said was actually very plain.
Obvious.
Plain and obvious, right? But he's like, yeah, but it changed my life. It changed your life because it's the energy that Jeff Bezos put through. He put the energy of decades of restriction, hard work, and transformation on a level that is very rare. So it's the energy you put through your words. And this is also what I learned about public speaking and speaking in general, is what your consciousness was that day, how many challenges you overcame that day. Let's say you're having the worst 4 hours before a big business presentation. This is a good sign. It means that the light is trying to get you to earn energy to put in the bank for your speaking engagement. Many times we would have big seminars, you and me, and I remember the days of those seminars were always so challenging and tough. Nothing went our way.
Oh, I missed flights. I had crazy stuff in those days.
And those are the ones that become so powerful because the light sends you challenges before a big presentation. in order for you to generate energy in your bank to be a channel. And this is just a very powerful thing. We all need to know that anytime something big is about to come, even like a wedding, right? What greater day of having to be a channel than your wedding day? And then you see all this garbage come up, usually beforehand, the day of, the week of, all these challenges, the caterer, the parents, everyone has something to say, who's going to be invited, the costs associated, the napkins. These are all just generating light that goes in the bank for the wedding day. So, like everything, the biggest channel you can be is equivalent to, it's commensurate with the amount of fears and negativity you overcome prior to that.
So this I think is the one piece of the conversation we didn't really touch yet, is those people who are deathly afraid of speaking. What can we give them? How can we help them go to their next level in being able to face those?
I gave some advice to someone recently who's shy, and I think it's a good advice for everybody. I said, I want you throughout the day to just give compliments to random strangers. There's something about how we perceive people perceive us that's totally closing our heart and blocking us from being a channel. Give compliments, because you're most comfortable when you're giving. So giving a compliment's good. Obviously, don't be weird about it, but I would, maybe I was getting a coffee and, whoever the person getting me the coffee was, I'd be like, by the way, I just want to tell you, you just gave me incredible customer service. And I'll amplify it by looking them in the eye and pausing and say, you gave me incredible customer service. Or I'll say, I love those shoes. Those are great shoes. Whatever it is. You just come up with stuff to say over and over again. And then you'll see that actually you open up a gate inside of you that you want to actually be a channel for people. Because being a channel means you want to give. So you start by giving compliments.
Yeah, for that, I love what you said, because to me, when I talk to people who are afraid, let's say beginning teachers who are just starting to get up and speak in front of people, their fears really come from what they're afraid to receive. The rejection, the negative feedback, the people aren't going to like me, which is the opposite. Like when you're giving, you're putting energy out there. When you're afraid, it's really taking. You're afraid of the energy you're going to get. You're not thinking about what you're sharing. So for those of you that are feeling that freeze when it comes to opportunities to share. By the way, back in those days, I wouldn't be able to even say thank you to somebody bringing me a coffee, right? There's different degrees of fears and feeling that frozen. But at the same time, being able to flip the story. You don't even want the compliments. You don't want them to love you. You don't want the feedback. It happened a couple weeks ago, actually, when you weren't here. I got a few messages from people that they were saying, best episode ever. And that was an episode that I walked away feeling like, maybe we should redo it. You weren't there to your credit.
It's always like that, huh?
And people, fans of, people have been listening for years are like, literally, that may have been the best episode, definitely top 5. And I was like, I wanted to crawl under the desk when it was over. So to that point, the people loving you or receiving it or how you feel about it doesn't usually correlate with what was received. And to me, that, I think you even mentioned it years ago on an episode, you don't want people to clap or to be, you don't want to hear, I loved it, it was amazing, because then you reverse the vacuum.
That's right.
You stop being a giver and you start being a taker. And so I think for a lot of you that are, it's almost more important.
My students now say that was the worst class I ever heard. Every time we give this lesson, they go, "Hey, that class terrible. Was really bad.
Need to
really
work
bad."
On it. For sure. But at the same time, it's really an internal thing. And when you flip that switch internally, you won't seek the compliments and the feedback anymore. And your words will reach what you want them to, which is to the hearts and the souls of the listeners. We are really excited for next week's episode. We are doing our first ever Q&A, answering your questions. So please go to weeklyenergyboost.com, click the contact button and send us your questions, or send us a DM at Weekly Energy Boost. And hopefully we'll get to as many of your questions in next week's episode as possible. As always, the Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We have a website, weeklyenergyboost.com, where you can find not only archive of episodes, but everything we think is important for our listeners to learn about, people we want them to meet, etc. You can also click the donate button on weeklyenergyboost.com to support our podcast and continue to support us by liking, rating, reviewing, and of course, sharing. Have a fabulous week, everyone, and we'll see you next time on the Weekly Energy Boost.